Hey, Diana, did you know that time management is actually easy?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers regarding marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am Marc Whitehead, along with my co-host Diana Berry, my COO and my right hand. And today we're on the schedule here at the beginning of 2025 to talk about time management. And I've always complained about that term, Diana. Because I don't think you can manage time. You can only manage yourself. So I think a more appropriate title would be focus management. But if we said focus management, I don't think anybody would know what the hell we were talking about in the title. But that's just my opinion. And by the way, I would warn everybody, I'm a little bit cranky today because I'm a little bit under the weather.
I will try not to take advantage of
So I'm
that.
like, Diana, you're just going to have to tolerate me a little bit today. I might get a little snarky.
Oh,
So
well, this will be an exciting podcast. But so why do you think focus management is time management, Martin? Why is that a better term?
So what are you trying to do? You're trying to manage yourself, okay? When we say you're trying to manage yourself, what we really mean is we're trying to manage how you think, okay? It's all about how you think. And ultimately that leads to the next step, which is how are you focusing your thought, okay? So what do you think about? Now, this podcast is mainly geared towards law firm owners and leaders within law firms, or those who want to become a leader in a law firm someday. So how you think and how you apply that to your focus, I think is key on how you can get ahead in the practice of law. I mean, the best lawyers out there can do an amazing amount of stuff. And how do they do an amazing amount of stuff? They have great focusing skills. I use Mark Lanier as an example. Mark Lanier, lawyer here in Houston, but a nationally known trial lawyer, big into mass torts, was got the insanely large verdict in the Vioxx case. I mean, he puts on conferences all over the place. He puts on a big conference here in Houston every summer. I marvel at how can you do all of these things and yet try as many cases as he does, and like big, high-profile cases. He has an amazing ability to think, an amazing ability to focus. And if you ever go to one of his seminars, he has a 3-day seminar he puts on in the summer, and it's just him. It's not like he has 3 days of speakers. It is 3 days of just Mark Lanier giving his best stuff.
Wow.
And you come out of that, whether you are ever going to implement anything he said or not, but just the way he was able to focus and bring it all together over and keep you entertained over 3 days was just kind of amazing.
Right.
There's over 1,000 lawyers in that room. I mean, it was
Really?
growing and growing
I've
and
never
growing.
gone, so that's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of digress on puffing up Mark Lanier. Hey, Mark, we really love you, and yeah, can I be your friend, please? Can I be your friend, Mark? But he's an example of somebody just has an amazing ability to focus, which means he has an amazing ability to manage his time, to manage his calendar, to delegate tasks that we probably would never realize that he's delegating. So he's always been someone I would like to emulate in that regard, just because he's totally got his shit together.
Yeah, no. So, and everyone thinks about execution on your ideas, on your goals, like this very hard amorphous thing and how you're going to do it. But really, I think that that's exactly it. Your ability to focus yourself in your time, and because we all get the same 24 hours, right? So how you utilize those 24 hours is what sets the best apart.
Right. So, I was thinking about this, and I keep a quarterly to-do list, and it is structured in a very specific way. But I keep on the side column, you can't see this but I'm sitting here looking, and I keep notes about what am I supposed to think about. Now, I got this from a book called Paid to Think, and I think it is actually on the schedule that we're going to do a podcast specifically on that book. But I'll just rip it off a little bit ahead of time. But what are you supposed to think about as a leader of an organization? You're supposed to be thinking about strategy. You're supposed to be thinking about learning and acquiring knowledge for the organization. You're supposed to be thinking about how the organization performs. You're supposed to be trying to forecast the future, quite frankly. And you're supposed to be putting that all together. And so I have this written on my quarterly plan right here on the right-hand column, and I constantly look at that because it helps me get back to what I ought to be thinking about. So when you're thinking correctly, your focus management tends to fall in line with, fall along the lines of how you're actually thinking. So you are your thoughts.
And
You're made up of your atoms and your thoughts, and that's a slight deviation on thinking on your atoms. You're made up of your atoms and your choices, which is what I tell my kids. But you're made up of your atoms and your thoughts. You can't control your atoms, but you can control your thoughts.
And very few people realize that, right? Like, it doesn't start with what you say or what you're doing. It's starting with your thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back from break, we're going to go do a deeper dive on focus management.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead and Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, Diana, so we're going to do a little bit of deeper dive into focus management. And as usual, I have written an article about this in the Successful Barrister newsletter. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the things that I've written about. And I will say shamelessly that I ripped off Mark Powers and Sean McNallis's book, Time Management for Attorneys, which I highly recommend. You go get that by going to atticusonline.com and order it there. But they teach within the Atticus program certain time management. And again, I'm going to use the word focus management skills because it seems to apply better. But the very first tenet of what they teach is prioritization. In other words, you have to prioritize what you need to do. In other words, what function within your job, within your organization really moves the needle.
What's your highest and best use?
What's your highest and best use of your time? And that's the problem with a lot of lawyers is we will get caught into the minutia of dealing with the trivial because it seems to be urgent, but it's not really important. For a leader of a law firm, particularly a leader that's actually practicing law, handling a caseload, what is the highest and best use of that attorney's time? I would argue that the highest and best use of their time is, number one, strategizing on how to promote their client's best interest. In other words, so if you're a litigator, say you're working on a PI file, taking the time to think about the file in front of you and what you need to do to develop that case, to get the best result for your case. Just taking time to think, before you do anything, just think about it for a minute. Maybe think in conjunction with your client. Maybe have a conversation with your client where you can learn about the details of the case that may not be readily apparent by just, reading the file. But take time to think and plan your next course of action.
Yeah, so I think that it's contrary to what most people think, that the lawyer's highest and best use is to draft motions and to appear in court and all of these things. But you're saying that actually the highest and best use is the real thing that moves the needle is thinking.
Just thinking.
Strategizing.
Taking time to think, taking time to strategize, taking time to come up, and lay out a plan, okay? You don't have to execute on every element of the plan. You just need to think of the plan. Maybe you have an associate that can go take some depositions, or maybe you have a paralegal that can draft your discovery, or answer your discovery, or at least get it most of the way down the road. God help you if you're drafting depot notices or that sort of minutia, which goes to the next step. Once you make the plan, you need to be able to delegate parts of that plan that don't require your effort to make them happen.
Or use technology. I was just thinking about some of your examples. Now they have technology like AI to summarize your depots for you in like 30 seconds. And I think that's utilization of technology can really buy you back time.
No lawyer should ever summarize a deposition ever again in their life, ever.
No, technology makes it really easy.
It's a done deal. It's a done deal.
And then, of course, EOS has that delegate and elevate tool. Lots of tools out there, whether you use the Eisenhower matrix, that makes it real easy to figure out what am I doing that I should not be doing. I really shouldn't admit this to you, but I order, you probably know this, but you probably haven't actually thought about it. I order lunches for our level 10 meetings. Like I actually push the buttons and enter the credit card. Sometimes I'll even go get the lunches, which I now look as my little 10-minute break, like my mental health break. It's a good clarity break for me in the middle of the day. But I don't think that's the highest and best use of my time. So over the last quarter, I've actually started writing things down that in 25, I'm going to delegate to certain people, and ordering lunches will hopefully no longer be on my list.
Yeah. So the other things that are important, I think, for a law firm leader, in addition to actually doing the strategizing on your client's cases, is you need to spend time marketing your firm. It doesn't matter how great of a lawyer you are if you don't have cases to work on, and good cases to work on, it's kind of all for naught. And the flip to that is you also have to be able to manage the firm. In my firm, since I don't actually carry a caseload, I call it the 3 M's. My job is to market the firm, to manage the firm, and to mentor my lawyers. But if I was an actual practicing attorney that actually handled a caseload, it would be managing the firm, marketing the firm, and then strategizing on my individual cases. Those would be the highest and best use of my time as a leader in the firm. Anything that falls outside of those 3 or 4 areas, you have to look at real hard. That's really probably something that somebody else should be doing, in a strong, well-run organization.
Well, that, or you're letting the whirlwind prioritize or you're not focused. Back to the whole point of the podcast. You're clearly not focused because you're probably letting the whirlwind, things like ordering lunches rather than executing on your vision, in my case, take priority.
So, all right. So the first element there was prioritization. I kind of think we beat that horse to death. But all right. So the second one is, once you figure out what your priorities are, then it's about setting the goals. What are the goals that you're trying to accomplish? Some goals are long-term goals. Some goals are more daily goals. Sometimes, you have your daily task list. What's important that day, what moves the needle that day. But I like to do goal setting, broken down in reverse engineer it. So we've talked about this in the past, but we have the firm's larger 5-year goals. And then we break that down into a shorter period of time, either 3 or maybe, I think more practically speaking, based on the 5-year goal. Then we kind of look back and say, all right, what are our 1-year goals? Where would we like to be in 1 year? Okay. And then from there, we start breaking that down every quarter. What are our quarterly goals, our 90-day goals? And then from there, we reverse engineer that every week. I start my week. Look at what are my goals this quarter? All right. Now, so to further the goals of the quarter, what do I do this week in furtherance of that? I make a weekly plan. I use a little red planner called My Great Life that Atticus gives us. They give us one a quarter. You have your own planner that you have a different one that you like better.
Yep.
But whatever works for you. But it makes it, if you follow the plan, it makes you make your top 10 weekly goals. What do you want to accomplish this week? And then you just break it down. All right, Monday, here's my schedule. And here are the top 3 things I'd like to accomplish on Monday. And then you just do it again Tuesday. Here are the top 3 things I would like to accomplish on Tuesday, so forth and so forth. And you just break it down and break your goals down that way. And that's how the magic happens. What is it about your planner that you like that you don't like the planner that I use? I know that you just felt the Atticus planner just didn't suit you right.
First of all, Steve Riley and Mark House, we love the Atticus planner here, but I do think it's very similar, actually. It didn't resonate with me the same way that this one did. It still has its top 3 priorities. There's a cash flow portion, like expected cash flow that I think it's geared more towards the law firm owner, whereas my planner is really just meant for what I would call a doer, so it allows me to still structure out my weekly goals, which obviously we talked about the importance of that. It's got a quarterly planning section at the beginning. It's still quarterly snippets the same way yours is. I still have my big 3, and I still have the, recap at the end of the week, kind of looking at what worked, what didn't. There's a lot of similarities because focus management, there's not much new to it. You're just kind of wrapping it up. Mine's prettier. I will say that.
It is very pretty. It's kind of girly, flowery looking a little bit,
It's that, and I don't know about all that. I try not to make it too girly, flowery. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think it looks very professional. It's the full focus planner for anyone else who's wondering, but I like it a lot. It tends to be professional in my opinion, and allows me. I take notes. I still believe in the power of writing. I'm in a lot of meetings, and it allows me to write. It's a copious amount of space for writing notes. So,
yes.
It's done wonders. This week is very intense of the week that we're recording it, both personally and professionally. And I was insanely productive yesterday because of the power of the big 3. The section that allowed me to do the 3 goals. I think I got things marked off yesterday that you'd been asking for. I'm going to tell on myself again for a long time. So moving on to the next skill, Mark, what do you think is the next important thing for time management?
So just keeping us in order here. So number 1 was prioritization. Number 2 is then use that to set your goals. And number 3 here is actually scheduling time, blocking and tackling. So I complain about my calendar all the time, and this is my fault for not taking control of my calendar.
Yeah.
But anybody can go in and block time on my calendar if there's something that's not previously been blocked. And what happens is then my calendar becomes totally full because everybody wants a piece of my time. And then I don't have any time to actually get any good, solid planning and thinking time done. And that's my fault. And so here's the solution that I have just ordered just yesterday. My assistant has now blocked off my Tuesday and Thursday afternoon for the entire year of 2025. Just blocked off. So it's out. Nobody can jump my Tuesday or Thursday afternoon for the entire year. It's just auto calendared all the way out. And that's not to say that I won't schedule things in that time period, but I now have that time available to me for production time, for think time, for project time. If I need, I have a project I'm working on, I figure I need 3 hours of uninterrupted time to do this project. Right now I'm working on kind of an instruction manual on how to do a 30B6 deposition, basically to assist my younger lawyers in how to actually do that. Okay. This is not stuff they actually teach you in law school. So you need to teach your lawyers certain unique skill sets. This is one of my projects. This is after I thought about prioritization, goal setting. I want to teach my younger lawyers how to do 30B6s. So I'm putting this together, but I have to think about it. I need time. I need, to be able to do a little bit of research on this chat GTP thing or whatever. I don't know. But I can never get to the project because I didn't block the time out. So this year, this is my 2025 resolution is nobody can jump my Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. I got block time. I got 5 hours of solid think time twice a week. And I'm hoping that will be all I need, because I do know people need my time. Okay. But that's an example of blocking and tackling your time. You can do it other ways. So I taught my attorneys, particularly ones that handle a lot of hearings that are in court a lot, they're always like, how do I schedule my time? How do I schedule my time? I'm like, okay, fine. Take your week, starting on Monday, go to your calendar, block out, obviously your hearings are already there. Then you have other meetings that are blocked, they're already there, but find those blocks of time that are open and block them out. Just block it out and call it production time. There's a function within our calendaring system where you can put private on there, so you can block out time for massage, but you don't have to tell anybody. You just make it a private thing so people can.
Now we're going to know, Mark.
Say what you're actually blocking your time out for. But when you find those chunks, block them. Okay, protect them. In other words, go in and protect that time. So sometimes you need to do that a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, a month in advance. I'm doing it a year in advance. But make sure you block time, called blocking and tackling. Just block and tackle your calendar and find those bits of time that you can block to think, to be productive.
So here's something I'm going to throw you a curveball. So I just had a conversation with one of our ADA cousins, and one of her recent wins was that she was able to take her email down from something like 400 a day to less than 100, simply by controlling what she's CC'd on. Uh-huh. So controlling your email, I think, is huge. But now I'm thinking about it, putting meetings with you on a calendar is just it's an in-person version of a CC.
It really is.
So perhaps you need to do the delegate and elevate tool. You have your Eisenhower matrix again, and figure out, I think that because it's not just a once and done thing, right? I feel like it's almost at the beginning of every year as you're setting out your year. It is a good tool. I mean, I think EOS suggests you do that quarterly or maybe twice a year. I forget what the EOS regimen is, but I think it's something, especially with the evolution of both of our positions. I've been here over 4 years now. What's the highest and best use of your time in 25?
Right. So funny you should mention that, because what is the fourth thing on our list here? It's strategic delegation.
Yep.
So one of the ways to protect your time and to prioritize your time is to don't do what you shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. Delegate. And there's two parts to delegation that I've realized. Number one, we delegate tasks. There's a certain task that needs to be done, we delegate the task. But you also need to delegate the authority associated with that task, or otherwise you're not really saving a lot of time. If you say you have authority to go, notice this deposition. If they bring the deposition notice back to you and so you have to approve it because you didn't give them authority to go ahead and send it out without your approval, well, you really didn't save yourself that much time.
Yeah.
What does it matter? It's, a depo notice is a depo notice. Once you get it done, it's done. So not only do you have to give them the task, you have to give them the authority to execute and finalize the task. If you keep bringing things back, I need to see it before it goes out.
You're just creating more work.
You're just creating more work
for yourself, really, for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you really can, and I didn't know this is where this was going when I mentioned it earlier, but it really can kind of get into this really unfortunate cycle of where I'm like, but no, really, nobody else knows. I'm talking about ordering lunch again. Nobody knows what Mark will eat and what Mark won't eat. So I have to be the one that does this. And I'm sorry, but I have much more important things to do than figuring out what Mark will and will not eat that day.
How dare you if my sandwich shows up with tomatoes and mayonnaise on it, because there will be hell to pay.
Oh my gosh. And then there's this Chinese place that all of our attorneys are sick of, but they're like, but it's the only place that Mark will eat from. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm not.
Everybody knows the 5 things I will eat at the Chinese place. So
Exactly. So I have to be the one, though, that does it. And so now that's how toxic this has gotten over the course of the year because nobody else will do it. But now I'm going to delegate ordering lunch, Mark.
So the project for 2025 is to figure out how Diana doesn't have to order lunch anymore.
Well, and also that you've realized and support me delegating that authority to someone else who will likely make mistakes. And the attorneys listening to this, MWA attorneys, please just realize I've delegated to something.
Right.
This is a huge step. Support me.
So when the person you delegated to accidentally lets mustard, I like mustard, lets mayonnaise show up on my sandwich, I'm supposed to just let that slide?
Maybe there's some gentle correction that happens. That's potentially a different podcast, though. But yes, I think that's
Write that down. Podcast on gentle corrections.
I do think that's how toxic you can get. Like everybody listening knows, I have much more important things. That your vision for the firm literally resides on my shoulders, and I am wondering whether or not someone's going to eat the sandwich. It can get very toxic if you let yourself.
This sounds like this is going back into a therapy session.
It really is, but I think that it's important I think you brought up a good point. I did not want to delegate that authority because I didn't want to deal with the potential ramifications of a tomato showing up on a sandwich because it was just going to be one more thing that I was going to deal with. So
okay. So going down our list again: prioritization, goal setting, scheduling, delegation, and the last one that we're going to talk about here, and I don't know, do we going to talk about this before the break or after, which is managing your interruptions. And we all know the big interruption, which is frickin' email.
Yeah.
You want to do it now? Do you want to come back from break and talk about my whole system for managing email?
Oh, well, I think that's so big we'll do a break.
All right. So yes, the producer giving the high sign. We're going to take a break. So when we come back, we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to give you Mark's system for managing email. And trust me, I get about 500 or 600 emails a day. So we got to deal with that. All right, we'll be right back. I'm Mark Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister Podcast. We have a blast creating it, and I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. That's Mark spelled with a C. And join the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up. All right, so the last topic that we're going to talk about here on focus management is managing your interruptions, okay? So the big one is email. I'm going to save that sort of for the end. But the typical interruptions that you're going to see throughout the day are, hey, Mark, you got a second? I mean, just people just literally walk in your office, hey, Mark, you got a second, okay? So how I control that is I shut my door, or I leave my door open. If I leave my door open, you can walk in and say, hey, Mark, you got a second? But I have to think about this. I can't just let it happen. I have to think specifically, this is a door shut hour, or this is a door open, usually half hour. And people get to know that, but you have to enforce it. So when you get people that open your door and say, hey, Mark, do you got a second? I generally will, unless it looks like, they're crying or something drastic's going on, I will shut them down. And I'm like, no, I do not have a second. And I'll tell them when to come back. Basically I'm making an appointment for them to come see me. Hey, and it might not be long. It might need, hey, come back in a half hour. Or give me 10 minutes, or I need to finish up this. I'll come find you. That's my favorite. If you're interrupting me, how about this? I'll come find you and interrupt you. Okay. So manage those interruptions. The trivial tasks that sometimes you have to do that really aren't your priorities, but you eventually have to, well, schedule those. Schedule a non-priority time, like maybe Friday after lunch when nobody wants to be here anyway, that's the time I schedule to do maybe some trivial tasks that are really just aren't really important, but my energy level is already going to be low then anyway, so we might as well just use that waste time to just knock out some crap. Okay. But schedule it, that's part of it is you need to learn your peak production time. My peak production time is kind of late morning up to about lunch. And then after lunch I'm typically in that post-lunch coma, but then I will perk up about 2:00 in the afternoon. That's when the afternoon coffee kicks in. And I got another couple of hours from like 2 to 4 is another peak production time. I've learned this about myself, and then I start petering off about 4:00. So you need to understand when are your peak production times and schedule your highest and best use items then. I know a lot of people are morning people. Their peak production time is like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm sleeping at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I am not a morning person, but you just need to know that about yourself and figure that out.
Yeah, so one of the best things I think that you ever did for me, it's probably within the first 6 months towards the 6th month probably of my tenure here, and you said, stop parachuting. Stop coming and see. Just stop coming. That's what that was what you called it. Just coming into my office.
Parachuting into my day, and I didn't invite you.
You didn't, and you literally were like, stop. And I'm like, oh. Well, I don't need him as much as I thought I didn't need. You gave me the authority to go back to do my job. And I was like, okay, he trusts me. I don't need to run every single thing by him. And that was a real eye-opener for me.
That will save you a ton of time if you delegate authority. It's not just delegating tasks. You must delegate authority.
One of the books you had us read suggested that, everyone thinks this open door policy is great, but I think the higher up you go in your organization, you really do the closed door is kind. And so we've had all of our attorneys create office hours, obviously. So it's on their work calendars. Anthony keeps it on his door. Like, hey, this is when it's really good to come see me because I will block this out for you. And some of his team members will come and talk baseball with him, or really just, hey, I don't understand why we did it this way. Those in-depth conversations with his team members.
So one of the things I do is I have a daily huddle at 10:30, which is when I have you guys. That's your set time to come and talk to me about your day. Okay. So people will ask me questions. I'll just reply huddle, which means come talk to me during huddle time.
It's frustrating.
Yes, I know you want an instant.
I want an answer.
You want an answer. And I'm like, huddle. Well, usually because I have a series of questions and, a series of emails is just a big waste of time.
I understand.
So I want to have a conversation, but let's converse when our scheduled huddle time is. So if you can post times on your wall, or on your door. Now, I used to have it when I was more in charge than I am now. I used to have it set up by section, like, intake, come see me between 10:30 and 11. And then, SSD could come see me between 1:30 and 2. And, maybe VA would come see me between 2:30 and 3. And I would have those times posted on my wall. And I don't do that anymore because I've kind of backed out and I've delegated that to other people. All right. So the big time suck for, I think, practically every attorney I've ever met is email, because email can just parachute into your day unannounced at any time. And it's incessant. So for me, I get probably 500 to 600 emails a day. Now, how do I deal with that? So the first thing, I use Outlook. I think most lawyers use Outlook. Outlook allows you to set rules, and it allows you to create folders. So again, what are my priority emails? So today I don't think you have to do that, but originally Outlook would order your folders alphabetically or numerically. And so I want my most important folder, which is federal court emails. I wanted that to be number 1, so I put 1 period federal court emails.
Right.
That's how I titled it. So therefore, that would be the first folder. These days, I think you don't have to do that.
Yeah, you can drag and drop them.
You can drag and drop them. But anyway, originally, so now every federal court, they have a standard email signature. So you basically create a rule that anything from this email address goes into that folder. So I open up my email. I see I have 5 emails from federal court. Well, I'm immediately going to go look at that because that's important. I need to know what's going on. I need to know what's happening in the courts. My second folder is an attorney folder. So any attorney that I have dealings with, whether opposing counsel or referral counsel, not my attorneys, but other outside attorneys, that's a priority. You want to know with an attorney's trying to contact you about something. That was number 2. And I created rules. So, I don't have that many attorneys that contact me, maybe 20, 25. You see the same suspects over and over again. So they all had rules. So all of their emails went into the second folder. And then now I have my staff divided up into 2 different folders. I have my direct reports, which are all my attorneys, and my managers are what I call direct reports, the highest priority. They go into the third folder, which is internal. And then I have one that's called staff, which is everybody else is programmed to go in there. Then I have vendors below that. Then I have organizations that I belong to, like AAJ and HTLA and TTLA. They go there. Then below that, I have listservs. Now this is where I've seen people really bog down. Listservs are very, very valuable.
Very.
You can talk to a group of people about a thing. I'm on the PILMA listserv. I'm on the PILMA Mastermind listserv. I'm on the TTLA listserv. I'm on the HTLA listserv. I'm on the AAJ listserv. These are very valuable things, but you can't let those go into your inbox. They will just bog you down beyond belief, and then you'll just get sucked into the conversation. So all of those are programmed to go into their own various folders. And each listserv has its own folder. I don't put all the same listservs in the same folders because then they would get kind of mushy. But this is how I manage 500 emails a day, is the folder system. And there's other folders in there. I'm not going to go into every one of them, but I have a personal folder, I have a folder for accounting, banking, and finance, which is important but low volume. So that's my folder system that I've created. Now the other thing I've done, I thought this was brilliant. I told this to Jim Adler, and Jim implemented. He thought it was the most brilliant thing ever done. Is you have to be militant about unsubscribing to the bullshit that gets in your email. The unsolicited, spammy emails that don't get caught by your spam filter, and they may very well be by a vendor that you've used in the past. So you probably didn't realize it, but you gave them permission
to send your
send
somewhere.
Record companies, medical record companies, constantly are emailing me. All kind of vendors that,
I get a lot of mass torts.
All this kind of stuff that I don't want. The problem is to unsubscribe, you probably have to hit 5 or 6 buttons. They make it hard to unsubscribe. And it's easier to delete them. But the problem is if you just delete them, they just keep coming back. It's like a fungus. They just keep coming back. So I've created an unsubscribe folder. So as opposed to deleting unwanted emails, I drag them, which is a quick, simple thing to do. And you can drag them in bulk if there's coming in, hot and heavy. I drag them to the unsubscribe folder. And I have an assistant whose job is to go in and actually do the unsubscribe for me. Do those 2 or 3 or 4 keystrokes that I'm too lazy to do. It's a brilliant system. And you're never going to get away from it, but it keeps to a minimum those spammy emails that you never wanted to begin with.
I don't get as many emails as you do, but your folders and your rule structures drive me crazy, mainly because I don't think it works for me. It does not work for me. I do think the best thing that I've done in the past, but was real crystal clear when I came here, was the 0 inbox rule. So my inbox is only things that are pending. Everything else that's relevant goes to a folder. Like I manually put it there, and it's organized by either, my responsibility, like I'm an HR folder, but then I also have a vendor that's supporting us in HR folder and their subfolders. And that's what keeps me organized. But the 0 inbox was huge for me. I don't understand how people have 10,000 emails in their inbox. I'm like, how do you know what's important?
Right. So here's
And I'm not judging the people that do, but yeah.
So I have created recently, this is a new thing, I've created yet another folder that sits up at the top, and it's called For Further Study. So I do get emails that I want to look at a little closer, and a lot of times it's from vendors making an offer. And I'm like, well, that's sort of interesting. I want to study that a little further, but I don't want to leave it in my inbox, which is the default, is that if you want to look at something, you leave it in your inbox. Well, then you just get more and more in your inbox. So I've now created this For Further Study folder where I drop and drag things. And the idea would be that, during downtime, I will then go back and look at that, and then decide whether I really am interested in this offer or not from this email. Now, I will say that what happens is typically I can go 2 or 3 or 4 weeks
Without looking at your For Further Study.
And that's okay. That's my choice. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to keep that in the inbox.
Yeah.
Now you can just flag it and go back later and look at stuff that you flagged. But I for some reason,
That one doesn't work for me.
Doesn't really work for me.
Yeah. So. But what you're doing, and it's to go back to the top and kind of close this podcast out, is you're creating a priority system.
Yes.
Right. So you're just saying that everything in my inbox is now here or in this For Further Study is here on purpose, and it's maybe one day be a priority, and that's what's going to help me with my focus.
Right. It basically prioritizes the emails and helps you get rid of the stuff that never should have been there to begin with. Now, I will say this, again, managing your interruptions. I have turned off the notice, the little pinging noise when I get an email, so I don't let that control me. So I look at my email only at specific times. I will look at my email probably the second thing I do. The first thing I do is I try to make my plan for the day when I come in. I try to get my folder out or my planner out and try to make the plan for the day. So then I will look at my email real quick. Now, I probably looked at my email over morning coffee while my kid's getting dressed, because that's one of my routines is I get ready, and then now I'm waiting for half an hour because my kid is, getting my kid out the door is a pain in the ass. So I have like a half hour. So usually I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, waiting on my kid, and I will do a quick run through the morning email and get rid of a lot of stuff. But in that 40-minute commute that I have, which is in prime email time, by the time I get to the office, I'll probably have 10 or 12 more emails.
Right.
But I don't look at it until I make my plan. And then I'll look at the emails and done. I try not to look at the email again until lunchtime. At least I don't look at the inbox. Now, if I see staff coming in on the staff email, or if I see the court, or if I see other attorneys coming in, because I can see that sitting over there at the corner of my eye, I might dig in and look at that real quick. But I try not to look at the inbox, because the inbox is typically the random crap. I try not to look at that again.
This also explains why you never reply to my email.
No, that is not true.
Why you rarely or will not immediately reply
So
to my
your emails always require thought.
Thank you.
So
you're welcome.
I need some time to think about before I reply to your email.
Well, I'll try to keep it important. So,
Right.
This has been really good, I think, especially at the beginning of 25, to really making sure that we're setting the year off right with focus or time management.
Just focus management.
Focus management. So thank you for these skills, Mark.
Well, I do my best. So that I think would make a great podcast, though. The book Paid to Think. I think we're going to put that on the schedule, because what do you need to be thinking about? So how do you know what to focus on if you don't think about what you need to do? So anyway, I think it's a brilliant book. With that, I'm getting the high sign that we got to get the hell out of here. I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together with a dynamic duo of law. So remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, tell your friends, spread the word so we can grow our audience. And come visit us at successfulbarrister.com. And remember, sign up for our mail newsletter, again, at successfulbarrister.com. And be sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead and Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.